I got one question. Maybe you can tell the audience that why do players need an agent?
Well, that's a really good question. I think a player is somebody who has to focus on his career and he has to focus on his time on court. An agent provides structure and strategy. And structure and strategy are integral to a proper game plan. When you think about the sports landscape, you think of it, especially in the professional stage, you think of it as a multifaceted opportunity for a player. It's almost as if you're your own version of an entrepreneur and you're, seeking opportunities for best to improve your career forward. And that takes a lot of strategy. You cannot develop your exposure if you don't have the right, I would say, tandem in terms of developing your opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about strategy, right? So when a player is strategizing for the opportunity, that doesn't mean that he can sacrifice his time on court to do that. The player needs to be focusing on one thing and one thing only, improving himself. And every single player out there is spending more time on court, developing his skill. If he is spending more time strategizing and finding ways to expose himself, then what does that mean? His time on court is sacrificed, right? So having an agent allows you to be two places at once. The player can be concentrated and focused on being in the court, training, right? And being in the gym, training, being at home, focusing on recovery, while the agent can focus on the few things: building his exposure, strategizing on developing his commercial value, strategizing on making sure we can leverage on the opportunities abroad, looking for opportunities. So it's a full-time job, right? And putting that two and two together allows the player to maximize his time as an athlete. You're looking at an average time span of an athlete of 10 to 15 years if you're lucky, right? If you started early, right? And essentially, when you look at that, that's a finite amount of time. So you want to be able to not plan just for 1 year. You want to take a look at your career and your commitment for the next 15 years. And that takes strategy, right? Thinking about things in the long term allows you as a player to commit yourself for a marathon, not a sprint. And that's really the beauty of having an agent, is you can move from a short-term mentality to a long-term mentality. That allows the player to become more secured with his commitment to the sport. That allows him to feel more aligned and attuned when things don't go his way, right? Injuries can happen, teams can fold, transfers can happen, you may have a bad season. All of that is a function of what you need to work together on with an agent. The agent allows you to make sure that when these things happen, your focus is still very much on improving yourself on court, getting yourself better, while the agent can help manage that. And this is all happening within a 15-year period, Jordan. Every year, an agent and a player needs to already think, okay, what's going to be our strategy in second year? Mid-year this year, we're already thinking about what the likelihood will be of a strategy next year and the year after that. So planning that is also helping the player mature. And I think that's where representation really helps, is that if you can have a very transparent communication with your agent and you can allow the mentality to go from short-term mentality to long-term mentality, then you can create a more valuable success when it comes to building your career, not only on your entry into the professional world, but also in your exit into the professional world. So you see, our lifespan as an agent goes beyond managing the career. We have to be able to help them, prepare them for what lies after.
Okay, well said, well said. Now we have a clearer picture of why do players need an agent. And from our conversation back in Macau, and I know you have been vocal about wanting more Filipino athletes playing overseas, right? So what's holding it back?
I would say it's really more belief. And I say belief because there's not enough exposure from local opportunity to the global stage. It's happening already now, where we have a few players, well, quite a few players in the KBL and the Japan Basketball League that are inspiring the younger talent or the talents from here to aspire to play abroad, right? So that aspiration is there, right? So the belief is that Filipinos can do it because Filipinos are abroad already. But we need to transition that belief into internal belief, where the players themselves can now realize that I'm a basketball player, I have the talent. What can I do now with that belief to transition that into something actionable? Where can I take my belief? Where can I take that inspiration that turns into internal belief into an action that I can, do that allows me to locally build myself in terms of making myself at the standard of global basketball? What steps do I need to take? So what's stopping them from making it globally is not their talent. They're talented. We have the skill. It shows. But it's making sure that there are, I would say, the levels of experience, people that can guide them to where they need to go globally. The exposure towards the global basketball scene locally in terms of taking those necessary steps is still very small. And I'll go back to what you said earlier about the gaps, right? So the other gap that I realized also, the gap that we realized, is that these players, apart from not being able to be represented by people who think about things globally, is that they're fixated on the local league, right? They're looking at their career as a function of local league. And, and much respect to the local leagues. Essentially, we need our local leagues to be better, right? But if the local league is focused on making sure that talent stays within the context of Philippine basketball, right? And there's not enough push to globalize basketball on their end, then it becomes very difficult for the player to put himself in an exposure situation where he plays in a league that can get him exposed to the global stage. So it's training and development in terms of exposure to that global standard of training and development, and it's exposure to leagues that identify with, choosing opportunities for global scale. These two aspects of it, combining with the idea that there's not enough representing talent, that there's not enough agents that represent global opportunity locally, are what are stopping the gap. And I say this with very strong conviction. These will change. Our problems today locally will change. Our gaps today will change because we're actively pursuing them. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a huge surge of Filipino talent, not only coming from the Philippines, but those from the US who have Asian nationalities coming to the Philippines to fine-tune themselves and then going to other countries. And at the same time as well, we're going to see a lot of Filipino talent who are already playing abroad, right? Find their way back to the Philippines. And I think that's what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Our leagues are going to get better.
Oh.
I definitely see that. Our leagues will have no choice to get better, I think, because basketball is a global game. And we need to recognize ourselves as a global sport. We're part of it, right?
Yep.
And,
right.
governance-wise, that will change as well. I'm hopeful. And essentially that will mean that there will be a better opportunity for local players to find themselves in exposure, representation, and better training.